This project is rejected. The thick stack of documents was thrown onto the wooden conference table with a dry thud. I glanced at the blue cover of the file, which I had personally stayed up 3 nights to complete, then looked up at the man sitting in the chairman's seat. Ha Dai, the new CEO, had been transferred from the headquarters to the East China region just last week. He wore a crisp white shirt without a single crease, his tie meticulously fastened to an obsessive degree. His face was remarkably handsome, with sharp features, but his demeanor made one want to submit a resignation letter immediately. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice as professional as possible. CEO Ha, all the figures in this report are based on actual market surveys from the last quarter. A budget of 500,000 yuan for the initial phase is the minimum to run ads on short video platforms. If we cut it further, the conversion rate will be 0. Ha Dai tapped his finger lightly on the table, not bothering to look me in the eye, and checked his wristwatch. Miss Han Engai, how long have you worked here? 5 years. 5 years, and you're still thinking in the old way of burning money to buy fake traffic? Ha Dai closed his fountain pen with a calm click. I'll only approve 200,000. If you can do it, do it. If not, let someone else. He stood up, picked up his suit jacket from the chair, and walked straight out the door, not giving me a chance to argue further. The entire conference room was silent. Colleagues around me looked at me with a mix of pity and schadenfreude. Everyone knew I was the marketing department's warrior, having never had a proposal rejected by the old boss. Yet, Ha Dai had just arrived and was already using me to kill a chicken to scare the monkeys. I clenched the file tightly in my hand. Fine, Ha Dai, you want to make things difficult for me, don't you? 200,000 yuan it is. I refuse to believe I can't manage. After work, I packed my things, seething with anger, not moving out of the company, but moving house. Misfortunes never come singly. My old landlord suddenly demanded the apartment back for an urgent sale, forcing me to find a new place in the middle of the night. Fortunately, that morning I found an apartment online in the high-end Van Can Iron complex, a prime location right in the CBD commercial center, only a 15-minute walk from the company. The strange thing was the unreasonably low rent. A spacious 2-bedroom apartment, imported furniture, with a view of the TV tower, all for half the market price. The agent said the landlord was a wealthy person living abroad who just needed a clean tenant. I didn't think much of it, immediately signed the contract, and moved in that very evening. Just as I finished unpacking a few boxes, my phone rang with a message from a major client, CEO Vuong of Tea Food Group. Little Han, join us for a dinner party at Jiangnam restaurant tonight, please. We can discuss the next quarter's contract further. I looked at the clock. It was already 8:00 p.m. My stomach was rumbling, and I was exhausted from moving. But thinking about the sales target and Ha Dai's hateful face from earlier, I gritted my teeth, changed into my office dress, reapplied my makeup, and hailed a taxi. The party reeked of alcohol and cigarette smoke. Old Vuong was a notorious heavy drinker, pushing me to drink one glass after another. The 53-degree Mao Dai liquor burned as it slid down my throat. My stomach began to violently protest. CEO Vuong, I really can't drink anymore. I covered my glass, trying to refuse. Old Vuong chuckled, his plump hand attempting to pat my shoulder. Drink this last glass for my sake. A 2 million yuan contract, don't you want to sign it? For the year-end bonus, I closed my eyes and emptied the glass. By the time the party ended, it was 11:00 p.m. I stumbled out of the restaurant, my head spinning. The night wind did nothing to sober me up. I called a car to Van Can Iron. The smooth apartment elevator took me up to the 16th floor. The corridor was deserted, motion sensor lights illuminated my steps. I staggered to apartment 1602 and typed in the password. Beep, beep, beep. Wrong password. I frowned. Must be too drunk, I probably entered it incorrectly. I tried again, carefully typing each number, 199XX10. Beep, 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 wrong password. This damn lock? I angrily slammed my hand on the door. The agent clearly sent me the code. Or did the landlord change his mind? The alcohol fumes rising to my brain made me lose all patience. I pounded on the door. Open up, is anyone there? The lock is broken. After 3 loud bangs, the door suddenly opened from the inside. I lost my balance and tumbled forward, expecting to hit the ground. Instead, I collided with a firm chest, smelling faintly of warm wood and mint shower gel. I looked up, squinting to see the person in front of me. Tall, dressed in gray silk pajamas, a face familiar enough to be hateful. "Ha-dai," I mumbled, pointing at him. "Why are you in my apartment? Aren't you done haunting me at the company? Now you're sneaking into my home to cut my budget too." Ha-dai stood still as a statue, his hands supporting my shoulders to prevent me from slipping to the ground. He stared at me, his deep voice resonating from above my head. "Miss Han Engai, look closely at the apartment number. This is 1601. Your apartment is across the hall." I spun my head around in confusion, looking across the corridor, and indeed, there was another door marked 1602. It turned out I had entered the wrong apartment. "Oh," I laughed foolishly, trying to push him away to go to my own place. "Sorry, boss, I'm too drunk, I'm going home now." But as I moved violently, my stomach suddenly churned with a ferocious wave. The urge to vomit was overwhelming. "Erg!" I covered my mouth, but it was too late. "Han Engai, how dare you?" Ha-dai's warning voice had just begun when, wretch, I threw up all over him. The entire result of tonight's dinner party, including expensive Mao Dai liquor and several seafood dishes, landed safely on his silk pajamas and even splashed onto the suit jacket he was holding. It seemed he had just arrived home, changed, and hadn't had time to put his clothes away. The space plunged into a deathly silence. I vaguely looked up and saw Ha-dai's handsome face darken like the bottom of a pot, his whole body tensing. I recoiled, a sliver of survival instinct remaining in my drunken haze. "Boss," I slurred, "does this count as entertainment expenses?" Ha-dai took a deep breath, as if trying to suppress the urge to throw me into the corridor. He gritted each word between his teeth. "Han Engai, this suit is Italian bespoke, worth 80,000 yuan. Prepare to sell a kidney to pay off this debt." After that, the world went dark. I passed out, knowing nothing more, only vaguely feeling that I wasn't thrown onto the cold floor, but was lifted into a pair of arms. The harsh sunlight streaming through the curtains made me squint and wake up. My head throbbed and my throat was parched. I groaned, turning to look for a glass of water, only to realize I was in a strange bed. The gray bed sheets and soft pillows smelled of mint. This wasn't my home. Memories from last night flooded back in slow motion, being forced to drink, entering the wrong apartment, meeting Ha-dai and throwing up on him. I sprang up like a coiled spring, my face drained of color. Oh no, my life is over. Offending the big boss and then throwing up on him, ruining a suit worth tens of thousands of yuan. Not only would I be fired, but I was also at risk of being sued for damages. The bedroom door opened, and Ha-dai walked in. He had changed into simple home clothes but still exuded an arrogant aura. In his hand was an A4 sheet of paper and a steaming bowl of soup. He placed the soup on the bedside table and held the A4 paper out to me. "Awake already? Sign this." My hand trembling, I took the paper. The bold title read, "Acknowledgement of Debt." The content clearly stated, Han Engai owes Ha-dai special laundry costs and compensation for emotional distress due to illegal trespass and destruction of personal property. Total, 100,000 yuan. 100,000 yuan? I screamed, almost dropping my jaw. "Are you a robber? I remember you said that suit was 80,000. How does laundry cost 100,000? Ha-dai crossed his arms over his chest, calmly looking at me. "My service fee last night was very expensive. Who do you think carried you home? Who wiped your face? Who cooked hangover soup for you? I've already given you a friendly price." I was speechless. I looked at the fragrant, reddish-brown hangover soup next to me, then at his poker face. I didn't know whether to be grateful or punch him. "I don't have that much money to pay all at once," I mumbled, putting the paper down. "I know you're poor." Ha-dai pulled up a chair and sat opposite me, the corner of his mouth twitching into what I considered an extremely cunning smile. "So, I'll offer you an installment plan. From today, you'll be responsible for cooking dinner for me for 6 months to gradually pay off the debt. Additionally, you must personally and successfully negotiate the 200,000 yuan project with the Kai-Hon retail chain. If you fail, interest will be calculated daily." I stared at him. This blood-sucking capitalist was clearly finding excuses to exploit my labor both at work and at home. But looking at the balance in my bank account and thinking about the difficult-to-get job, I reluctantly picked up the pen and signed my name. Ha Dai satisfactorily took back the IOU, pushed the bowl of soup towards me. Drink it to sober up. In 30 minutes, I'll take you to the company. Don't even think about using a headache as an excuse to take a day off. He stood up and walked out. At the door, he suddenly stopped, not turning his head, and called back, "Next time, if you can't drink, don't force it. You have a low alcohol tolerance, yet you like to show off." The door closed. I picked up the bowl of soup and took a sip. The warm, sweet and sour taste spread through my body, soothing my upset stomach. It was strange. How did he know I liked hangover soup cooked with red dates and ginger? My mother often made this recipe. Few outsiders knew it. I shook my head, dismissing the absurd thought. It must be a coincidence. For a cold person like Ha Dai, there's no way he'd care about a subordinate's taste. The black Audi A8 slowly rolled out of the Van Can Iron parking garage. The car's interior was absolutely silent. I sat in the passenger seat, clutching my handbag, looking straight ahead, trying to make myself as small as possible. Ha Dai drove, his face focused, but I could feel a low-pressure atmosphere surrounding him. At the intersection about 500 meters from the office building, he suddenly pulled over. "Get out here." I was stunned. We weren't there yet. "Do you want the entire company to see you stepping out of my car?" Ha Dai unbuckled his seatbelt, turned to look at me, his eyes unblinking. "I don't want office romance rumors to affect your work performance on your first day as my debtor." I bit my lip, cursing silently under my breath. Clearly, he was afraid people would say he was keeping an employee. I opened the car door and stepped out decisively. "Thank you, CEO Ha. Don't forget your task this afternoon. Bring the Kai Hone proposal to my office at 2 p.m. The car window rolled up, and the Audi sped away, leaving me rooted among the hurried rush-hour crowd. As I stepped into the office, the suffocating atmosphere immediately hit me. News of yesterday's meeting had spread throughout the marketing department. Several intern employees huddled together, whispering, and immediately fell silent when they saw me, pretending to type on their keyboards. I walked straight to my desk and turned on my computer. An internal email notification appeared on the screen, stating that the project in cooperation with the Kai Hone retail chain was officially transferred to my responsibility. I opened the attached file, and the more I read, the tighter my brows furrowed. Kai Hone was the largest retail supermarket chain in the East China region, accounting for 40% of the market share. If the company's new products could be placed on their shelves, this quarter's sales target would certainly be met. The problem was that Tun Lap, Kai Hone's procurement director, was an extremely difficult person to deal with. My 3 predecessors had all failed with him. One was kept waiting for 5 hours, another had their plan thrown in their face for lacking creativity. One was even plied with alcohol until they ended up in the hospital. Ha Dai threw this difficult bone to me, clearly wanting to push me to the limit. With a budget of 200,000 yuan, which he approved, bribing or organizing a large event to impress Tun Lap was impossible. I spent the entire morning researching Tun Lap's profile. At 2 p.m., I knocked on Ha Dai's office door. "Come in." Ha Dai was reviewing documents, not looking up. I placed the preliminary plan on the table. "Boss, regarding the Kai Hone project, I've reviewed it. With a budget of 200,000, I propose we don't directly target display fees, but switch to a profit-sharing cooperation model based on each product sold. This will reduce their risk." Ha Dai stopped writing, looked up at me, his eyes as sharp as lasers, scanning the thin plan. "Tun Lap has been a cunning fox in the retail industry for 20 years. Do you think he'll care about a few paltry shared profits from a new brand?" He pushed the documents back towards me. "What he needs is young customer traffic to the supermarket. Kai Hone's system is becoming outdated. The main customers are housewives over 50. You've been in marketing for 5 years. Can't you see this pain point of theirs?" I froze. It was true. I had been too focused on the budget issue and overlooked the bigger picture. Ha Dai tapped his hand on the table. "Go home tonight and show me. If you still bring this rubbish to meet Tun Lap tomorrow, prepare your interest payment. My daily interest is calculated at loan shark rates." I took back the documents, feeling both annoyed and impressed. This capitalist's words were harsh, but every sentence hit the nail on the head. "I understand." I turned to leave when Ha Dai called me back. "Wait," he pointed at the wall clock. I want dinner on the table by 6 p.m. when I get home. Remember, I don't eat onions, no raw garlic, meat shouldn't be too lean, and vegetables must be thoroughly cooked. I gritted my teeth. Yes, my creditor. At 5:30 p.m., I carried 2 large bags of ingredients from the supermarket downstairs. As I reached the door, I instinctively went to press my own apartment's password, then remembered the Sell My Soul contract. I sighed, turned, and entered Ha Dai's apartment password. He had texted me the code earlier, 95,921. Now that I was sober, I could clearly see that Ha Dai's apartment was 1.5 times larger than mine. The dominant colors were gray and black, cold and meticulously neat to an inhuman degree. Besides avian mineral water, the refrigerator contained nothing edible. I put on an apron and began to pay my debt. Today's menu: sweet and sour pork ribs, tomato egg soup, stir-fried bok choy with mushrooms, all basic family dishes but requiring precise seasoning. I was fumbling with slicing the meat when I heard the door open. Ha Dai was home. He took off his suit jacket, hung it on the rack, loosened his tie, rolled up his shirt sleeves, and walked into the kitchen. Seeing me struggling with a piece of rib, he leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching. Slice them smaller. How will those big pieces ever cook through? I firmly chopped down with the cleaver, *thud, without turning my head. CEO Ha, you can direct me during work hours, I have no objections. But the kitchen is my territory. If you want good food, be quiet and go outside. Ha Dai raised an eyebrow, seemingly surprised by my retort, but he said nothing, quietly poured a glass of water, and went to the living room. 30 minutes later, 3 dishes and 1 soup were served on the table. I dished out rice and placed the bowls and chopsticks in front of him. The atmosphere at the dining table was strangely silent. I sat opposite, picking at a few vegetables for show, discreetly observing his expression. Ha Dai picked up a piece of rib, brought it to his mouth, and took a small bite. He chewed very slowly, swallowed, then picked up another piece. I held my breath, waiting for criticism. It's decent, he offered a concise comment, but his eating speed noticeably picked up. Soon, half of the sweet and sour pork ribs were gone. The tomato egg soup bowl was also empty. I was a bit surprised. This guy seemed so picky, I didn't expect him to be so easily pleased. Or was it just that I cooked too well? Wash the dishes after you're done, and wipe the kitchen floor you splattered with oil earlier. Ha Dai put down his chopsticks, wiped his mouth with a tissue, his demeanor returning to that of an arrogant boss. I glared at him, fire in my eyes, and cleared the dishes. When I finished washing up and came out, I saw Ha Dai sitting on the sofa looking at his tablet. A yellow sticky note was on the coffee table. "Take it," he gestured with his chin towards the paper. I picked it up. It had a phone number and an address. This was Tun Lap's personal secretary's number and the address of the golf club he frequented on Saturday mornings. Ha Dai didn't look at me, his eyes still glued to the tablet screen, reading financial news. Tun Lap doesn't meet clients at the office. If you want to see him, you have to go to the golf course. Don't say I didn't give you anything. I clutched the paper in my hand. This kind of internal information wasn't easily obtained. Normally, rival companies had to spend a fortune bribing his staff to get Tun Lap's private schedule. "Why are you helping me?" I asked directly. "You want me to fail so you can charge interest, don't you?" Ha Dai looked up, his deep eyes fixed on me. "I'm a businessman, not a loan shark. If you secure the contract, the company profits and I get my bonus. As for your 100,000, he paused, the corner of his mouth curving slightly, his tone carrying a hint of annoyance. "Even if you pay off all the money, the 6-month cooking contract is still valid. I don't like eating takeout." So his ultimate goal was still his stomach. "All right, thank you, boss." I put the paper in my pocket. "I'm going home now. Tomorrow I'll go to the golf course and ambush him." "Wait." Ha Dai stood up and went into his study. A moment later, he came out holding a set of golf clubs and placed them in my hands. "Are you planning to fight empty-handed? Tun Lap hates outsiders who come to the golf course just to talk business. Take these clubs. Pretend you're also there to play. At least look professional." I looked at the shiny golf clubs in my hand, then at Ha Dai's cold face, and a strange feeling welled up in my heart. This dark boss wasn't as bad as I thought, but I was wrong. The next morning, when I carried the heavy golf clubs to Thien Can Club, the guard at the gate looked at me and shook his head. "Sorry, ma'am, the golf course is fully booked today. Outsiders are not allowed." I was stunned. Who booked it? CEO Ha Dai of your company, who else? He's playing a friendly game with Mr. Tun Lap at hole number 3. The blood rushed to my head. Ha Dai, he knew Tun Lap was here today, and he was here too. Yet last night he gave me clubs, told me to go ambush Tun Lap myself, and now he's blocking me at the gate? Was he playing cat and mouse with me? I pulled out my phone and called Ha Dai directly. It rang twice. He answered. "Are you at the gate?" His voice was calm, and I could hear the wind whistling on the other end. "Ha Dai, what do you mean by this? You're in there with Tun Lap. Why didn't you tell me to come in with you? Are you deliberately making things difficult for me?" "Han Engai, use your brain." Ha Dai's voice hardened. "If I bring you in, Tun Lap will think you're my person and he'll be wary. But if you find a way to get in yourself, he'll see you have guts. The guard won't let you in. Behind the golf course, there's a path for ball retrievers. The fence there is 2 meters high, but there's an old tree next to the wall. You used to climb walls to sneak out at night in college, didn't you? A small obstacle like this shouldn't be difficult for you, right?" After saying that, he hung up. I looked at my phone, then at the distant fence he described. College? How did he know I used to climb walls to sneak out? Did he go to the same university as me? No time to think. This was my only chance to meet Tun Lap. I gritted my teeth, hitched up my dress, and carried the golf clubs around to the back of the course. "Ha Dai, just you wait. I'm adding this debt to your ledger." I landed in the most undignified posture imaginable. Both hands bracing against the grass, my knees aching, mud splattering all over the pristine white golf dress I had rented at an exorbitant price. I brushed myself off and stood up. Before I could compose myself, a shadow fell over my head. "Wall climbing skills aren't bad. Looks like your old truancy habits still come in handy." Ha Dai stood 2 meters from me, golf club in hand, wearing a sports polo shirt and a cap that covered half his face, but couldn't hide the corner of his mouth twitching with amusement. Beside him was a pot-bellied, dark-skinned middle-aged man who was looking at me with a mix of surprise and suspicion. That was Tun Lap, the old fox of the retail industry. "Who are you? Where are the guards? Why are strangers allowed in here?" Tun Lap shouted, pulling out his phone, intending to call security. I took a deep breath, smoothed my hair, and flashed a standard corporate smile. "Hello, CEO Tun. I'm Han Engai, representative of H Company. I've long admired your golf skills. Hearing you were here, I boldly found a way to come and admire your game." Tun Lap frowned, glancing at Ha Dai. "Is she one of yours?" Ha Dai calmly wiped his club head, neither admitting nor denying. "She's a subordinate who doesn't know her place. If Mr. Tun finds her troublesome, I'll have someone escort her out immediately." I glared at Ha Dai. He was clearly the one who encouraged me to climb the wall, and now he was washing his hands of it. Tun Lap snorted coldly, his evaluating gaze sweeping over me from head to toe. "Since you've made it this far, you must have some guts. Do you know how to play golf?" "A little," I lied without blinking. In reality, I only knew how to hold a club for posing in photos. "All right, hit one shot. If it goes in the hole, I'll give you 5 minutes to present. If not, get lost." Tun Lap pointed at the white ball on the grass. I picked up the number 1 driver, my palms sweating profusely. The distance to the flag was far. With my amateur skill, hitting the ball was lucky enough, let alone getting it in the hole. I glanced at Ha Dai for help, but he stood there, arms crossed, with a "you made your bed, now lie in it" expression. I gritted my teeth, swung the club with all my might, asterisk whoosh asterisk. The club head miraculously sliced through the air past the ball. The ball remained motionless on the grass. The silence was so profound, I could hear crickets chirping. Tun Lap scoffed, "Get out, that's enough." I threw the club to the ground, raised my head, and looked him straight in the eye. "CEO Tun, my golf skills are terrible, but my ability to make money for you, I'm confident, is second to none." Tun Lap paused, big words. "Your Kai Hone system's revenue dropped 5% last quarter. The reason isn't poor products, but because no customers under 30 want to step into your supermarket. They find it old-fashioned and uncool. I have a way to attract them without costing you a single advertising cent." I spoke in one breath, hitting the pain point Ha Dai had suggested last night. Tun Lap narrowed his eyes. The disdain from earlier was gradually replaced by the calculation of a businessman. He was silent for a few seconds, then waved his hand. Tonight at 8:00 p.m., Hai Vai Lao restaurant. I want to hear the details. Now, don't bother me while I'm playing. I exhaled in relief, nodded, and turned to leave. As I walked past Ha Dai, I heard his voice whisper so softly that only the two of us could hear. Don't drink tonight. At 8:00 p.m. at Hai Vai Lao, I entered the VIP room, clutching the revised documents incorporating Ha Dai's advice. Tun Lap was already seated, but he wasn't alone. Two other unfamiliar men were there. By their attire, they appeared to be business partners. Little Han, you're here, have a seat. Tun Lap gestured to the empty chair right next to him. I hesitated for a moment, then sat down, trying to maintain a safe distance. CEO Tun, this is the detailed plan. No, let's not talk business yet. Tun Lap waved his hand, pushing a full glass of wine towards me. Here, we have a rule. Wine speaks, words follow. If you drink this entire glass, I'll read one page of your document. Drink the whole bottle, and I'll sign the contract immediately. It was a bottle of 52-degree white liquor. My body stiffened. The lesson of throwing up on Ha Dai was still fresh. Moreover, looking at the hungry eyes of the three men in the room, I knew that if I got drunk, the consequences wouldn't just be throwing up. I'm sorry, sir, my stomach isn't well. The doctor forbade me from drinking. I politely refused. Tun Lap's face immediately darkened. Miss Han Engai, are you disrespecting me? You were quite bold this morning. He unexpectedly reached out and placed his hand on my thigh, his rough hand stroking through the thin fabric of my dress. I shivered, instinctively stood up, and brushed his hand away. CEO Tun, please be respectful. Respectful? Tun Lap laughed loudly, his laughter echoing through the room. The two other men joined in. Who do you think you are? You're just a lowly employee begging me to sign a contract, wanting to make money without investing anything. He stood up and pressed close to me, the strong smell of alcohol hitting my face. Be a good girl and drink this glass. Serve me well tonight, and I'll sign any contract, 200,000 or 500,000. I backed away, my back hitting the cold wall. My hand fumbled for the doorknob, but Tun Lap quickly blocked it. Where are you going? Just as I was about to grab the wine glass and throw it in his face, ready to accept losing my job, the VIP room door was kicked open. Bang! The loud noise startled everyone, making them turn around. Ha Dai stood at the door, hands in his pockets, his face as cold as a 1,000-year-old iceberg. Behind him were two tall bodyguards. CEO Ha, Tun Lap was stunned, quickly retracting his hand. When did you get here? Why didn't you say anything? Ha Dai didn't answer, striding directly to me. He glanced at my trembling hand, then turned to stare at Tun Lap. CEO Tun, if I'm not mistaken, the exclusive supply contract between Kai Hon and my company has a clause regarding the protection of personnel on both sides. Can your recent actions be considered a breach of contract? Tun Lap's face changed color, forcing a laugh. Misunderstanding, just a misunderstanding. I was just joking with her for fun. Joking? Ha Dai picked up the white liquor bottle from the table, tipped it upside down onto the floor. The alcohol spilled everywhere, its pungent smell filling the room. I don't like this kind of joke. He threw the empty bottle into the trash, the shattering glass deafening. The contract with Kai Hon is cancelled. Tomorrow, I will sign with your competitor, Bok Loi. I believe they will be very interested in Han Engai's plan. CEO Ha, don't be so hasty. We've cooperated for years. Tun Lap frantically grabbed Ha Dai's sleeve. Ha Dai shook his hand off, grabbed my wrist, and pulled me away. I was dragged out of the restaurant, unceremoniously shoved into the passenger seat of the familiar Audi. He slammed the car door shut, walked around to the driver's side, started the car, and sped off. The speed was so fast that I had to cling to the hand grip. Ha Dai, thank you, I mumbled, my heart still pounding with fear. Shut up, Ha Dai yelled. It was the first time I'd seen him lose his composure like this. Don't you have a brain? I told you not to drink. If the situation isn't right, you should run immediately. What were you doing arguing with that old pervert, waiting for him to strip you naked before you get scared? I bowed my head, tears of indignation welling up. Who did I do all this for? Wasn't it for that damn sales target he imposed? Seeing my silence, Ha Dai seemed to realize he had been too harsh. He exhaled, slowed the car down, and rubbed his temple with one hand. The car arrived at the Van Can Iron parking garage. We walked to the elevator lobby. A bright yellow under maintenance sign hit my eyes. Excellent, Ha Dai said with a cold laugh, broken at just the right time. Our apartments were on the 16th floor. I looked at my 7-centimeter high heels, then at the endless stairwell, feeling utterly despairing. I'll carry you. Ha Dai squatted down in front of me, his back broad and steady. No need, I can walk myself. Get on now, don't test my patience. I hesitated for a second, then carefully climbed onto his back. Ha Dai stood up effortlessly as if I weighed nothing. The stairwell corridor was silent, only the steady sound of his footsteps echoed. I wrapped my arms around his neck, inhaling the familiar warm woody scent. His shirt was slightly damp with sweat. By the 10th floor, I heard his breathing become heavier, but his steps remained steady. Ha Dai, I whispered into his ear. Did you really cancel the contract with Tun Lap? The company will suffer huge losses. I was just bluffing him, Ha Dai replied as he climbed the stairs, his voice not showing any shortness of breath. That old man is greedy but very afraid of losing market share. Tomorrow morning he'll bring the signed contract to the company himself. Just receive it. Are you sure? I've never misjudged, except, he left the sentence hanging. Except what? Except hiring a foolish employee like you, which cost me money for clothes and the effort of climbing stairs like a coolie. I pouted, secretly pinching his shoulder lightly, but a strange warmth welled up inside me. Upon reaching the 16th floor, Ha Dai gently set me down in front of my door. He leaned against the wall, panting, his forehead drenched in sweat. You know my apartment password. Go in and get the ointment from the TV cabinet and put it on your feet. I saw you limping earlier. I looked down. My heels were rubbed raw, bleeding slightly. I hadn't felt the pain earlier due to the stress, but now it stung. Thank you, boss, I mumbled. And one more thing. Ha Dai straightened up, looking deep into my eyes. The dinner cooking contract is still valid, but from tomorrow, if you have to attend client dinners, you must report the location and time to me. This is an order. After saying that, he turned and opened his own apartment door, leaving me standing bewildered in the hallway, my heart skipping a beat. I vaguely realized that the relationship between me and this demanding boss seemed to be drifting off its original course. Monday morning, Tun Lap indeed had someone deliver the contract. Not only that, he also sent a large bouquet of flowers and an expensive tea set to the marketing department, calling it a gift of apology to Miss Han Engai. His attitude had completely changed 180 degrees from his lecherous demeanor that night. I looked at the signed contract, sealed with a red stamp, lying on the table, feeling somewhat unreal. The terms in it were even more favorable to the company than my original proposal. Tun Lap immediately agreed to a 20% gross profit share instead of the market standard 15%. Han Engai, you're really good, Department Head Lu said as she walked past, her voice acerbic. I heard you went to the golf course with CEO Ha on Saturday and then had a private dinner with a client that night. Must have been tough, huh? She emphasized the words, tough, huh, with loaded meaning. The entire office fell silent, but I knew dozens of ears were perked up, listening. Rumors that I had slept my way up to the boss to get the contract had been circulating since I stepped into the company this morning. It made sense. A lowly employee with a cut budget closed the most difficult contract in the company's history in just 2 weekend days. Who would believe it was clean? I picked up a pen to sign for the delivery without looking up. It's nothing special, Sister Lu. At least I didn't let the company waste money on meaningless dinner parties without bringing in any results. Department Head Lu's face turned beet red, then ashen. Last quarter, she had spent 500,000 yuan on client entertainment, but failed to secure any significant contracts. Meeting in, the CEO's office door opened. Ha Dai stood there, holding a cup of coffee, his cold gaze sweeping over the crowd gathered to gossip. During the meeting, the atmosphere was tense. Department Head Lu was determined not to let me off the hook. CEO Ha, regarding the Kai Hon contract, I see some irregularities. Tun Lap is known for being extremely stingy. Why would he suddenly accept such a high profit sharing rate? Could there be any undisclosed agreements between Han Engai personally and them? We need to review the compliance procedures. She was implying that I had taken bribes, or used my own resources to secure the contract. I gripped the pen tightly, about to stand up and object, when Ha Dai spoke first. "Sister Lu, how long have you worked at this company?" Again, with this familiar question, Department Head Lu was startled. 8 years. 8 years? Ha Dai lightly tapped his finger on the table. 8 years of experience didn't help you see the potential of the younger customer demographic that Han Engai tapped into in her plan, did it? He turned on the projector. 2 charts appeared on the screen, one showing Kai Hon's declining revenue, the other a forecast growth model after implementing my strategy. Tun Lap signed the contract not because Han Engai is beautiful or knows how to drink. He signed because Han Engai showed him that if he didn't cooperate with us, he would completely lose market share to competitor Bok Loi. Ha Dai stood up, placing both hands on the table, looking directly at Department Head Lu, whose face was pale. "In my department, competence speaks through numbers. My people are not for you to judge with your petty, dirty mindset. Anyone who feels unconvinced is free to submit a resignation letter to HR. I will approve your dismissal immediately." The entire meeting room was silent. I looked at Ha Dai's straight back, an indescribable emotion welling up inside me. This was the first time in 5 years of working that a boss had protected me so openly and decisively. No beating around the bush, no attempts at keeping the peace. He used his absolute power to silence all those who wanted to bully me. After the meeting, I stayed to pack my things. Ha Dai walked past my desk and dropped a sentence. "Does your foot still hurt?" "It's better, boss." "Come home a bit early tonight. Don't make me wait for dinner." With that, he walked straight out, leaving me bewildered and the jealous, eye-popping stares of the remaining colleagues in the room. But man proposes, God disposes. That night, I couldn't go home early to cook dinner and pay my debt. As soon as I stepped out of the elevator on the 16th floor, I saw water everywhere in the hallway. A team of plumbers was rushing in and out of my apartment. The sounds of drilling and wall demolition were deafening. "What's going on?" I panicked, wading through the puddle, intending to rush into my apartment. A plumber stopped me. "Are you the owner of 1602? The main pipe embedded in the wall burst. The wooden floor is completely flooded. We have to break the wall to replace the pipes. You definitely can't stay here tonight. All the power has been cut." I looked inside. My wooden floor, which I had cleaned so thoroughly yesterday, was now submerged in muddy water. My belongings were piled up in a corner, and the smell of dampness began to rise. I leaned against the wall in despair. Truly, bad luck just wouldn't let up. I had just moved in 2 days ago, barely settled, and now my home was a swimming pool. Where could I go now? Hotels were expensive, and I felt awkward staying with friends because everyone had their own families. The door of 1601, opposite, opened. Ha Dai wore a gray loungewear set, holding a towel to dry his hair, seemingly having just showered. He looked at the war zone in front of my apartment, then at my miserable state, raising an eyebrow slightly. "Are you planning to open an aquarium and raise fish in your home?" "Boss, please don't mock me anymore." I waved my hand tiredly. "Do you know any cheap hotels nearby? I need to find somewhere to sleep for a few nights." Ha Dai didn't answer. He turned and went inside, returning a moment later with a pair of fluffy indoor slippers. "Come in." I said, "Come in." Ha Dai threw the slippers down in front of me. "My place has a spare guest room. Anyway, you owe me 100,000 and 6 months of cooking. It's more convenient here for you to pay your debt." Seeing my hesitation, he added, "Don't worry, I'm not interested in my employees, especially employees in your homeless situation. Room rent is 200 yuan a day, deducted from your salary." I looked at the murky water at my feet, then at the warm, dry apartment behind him. "Thank you, my creditor." I picked up my bag, slipped on the slippers, and shuffled into his apartment. Ha Dai's apartment was still terrifyingly clean and tidy. He showed me to the guest room, handed me a brand new set of sheets and pillowcases still in their packaging. "Change the sheets yourself. The bathroom is on the left. Eat dinner after you shower." "Eat dinner? I haven't cooked yet," I said in surprise. "If I waited for you to cook, I'd starve to death." I showered quickly, changed into the most discreet pajamas I had, and tiptoed out to the dining room. 2 savory dishes and 1 soup were already laid out on the table. The delicious aroma made my stomach rumble loudly. I sat down and looked at the colorful meal, vibrant red from chilies, hardly believing my eyes. Did you? Did you cook this? I ordered takeout, Ha-Dai said, dishing out rice, his face unreadable, but seeing the wet apron still hanging on the kitchen rack, I knew he had cooked it himself. I took a bite of fish. The spicy, numbing sensation tingled my tongue. The fish meat was tender and sweet, with a perfectly balanced sourness. It was so delicious I wanted to swallow my tongue. The strange thing was that the soup bowl contained absolutely no spring onions or cilantro, two ingredients I detested, but most restaurants included. How did you know I don't eat spring onions? I blurted out. Ha-Dai paused for a second, then calmly picked up some vegetables. I don't eat spring onions, you're just sharing my taste. I looked at the stir-fried beef dish, which also had no onions, and suspicion welled up in my heart. Could it be this much of a coincidence? Eat quickly. After eating, review the Q3 financial report. Tomorrow, you have to present the Kai-Hone contract implementation plan to the board of directors. Boss, can't you give me one night off? My house just flooded, I whined, but my hands kept picking up food. Miss Han Engai, I'm a capitalist, not a charity. Ha-Dai put down his bowl and stared at me. Besides, do you think I'm housing you for free? Rent, food, utilities, I've recorded it all. I pouted and buried my face in my food. The delicious meal made me temporarily forgive his sharp tongue. After eating, I took the initiative to wash the dishes. Ha-Dai sat in the living room watching the news. When I dried my hands and came out, I saw him holding his phone, his voice deep and stern. Investigate why the water pipe in apartment 1602 burst. I want to know if it's due to construction quality or someone tampering with it. Yes, report back to me tonight. I froze at the kitchen door. He suspects someone sabotaged my apartment? Ha-Dai turned his head, saw me standing there, put away his phone, his face returning to its normal calm expression. Done, come here. He patted the empty space next to him on the sofa. My heart skipped a beat. Do what? Put on the medicine. He took a tube of ointment from the coffee table drawer. Didn't your foot hurt when you were limping earlier? I looked down at my heel, still covered with a bandage from yesterday. I can put it on myself. Sit down. His voice carried an unrefusable command. I carefully sat down on the edge of the sofa, a safe distance from him. Ha-Dai took my ankle, gently pulled it towards him and placed it on his lap. His hand was warm, touching my cool skin, sending a jolt down my spine. He bowed his head, carefully applying the medicine to the scratches. His movements were so gentle I dared not breathe loudly. The distance was too close. I could see his long eyelashes and smell the familiar mint shower gel. Ha-Dai, I whispered softly. What? He didn't look up. Why are you so nice to me? Don't tell me it's because you want to exploit my labor. I don't believe that. His hand paused for a moment, then continued to rub the medicine. You're overthinking. I'm just protecting the company's assets. You're an employee who earns money. If you're crippled, who will meet clients for me? He closed the ointment tube, released my foot. He stood up and walked towards his bedroom. Go to bed early. Wake up at 7 a.m. tomorrow to make breakfast. The bedroom door closed. I sat on the sofa, clutching the foot that had just been treated, my face burning. Company assets. Does anyone protect assets to the point of bringing them home, cooking for them, and even personally applying medicine? The days of my reluctant temporary stay at Ha-Dai's apartment passed more peacefully than I had imagined. During the day, we were boss and subordinate, speaking in data and KPIs. In the evening, I cooked dinner to pay off my debt, and he washed dishes, deducting it from my salary. Everything proceeded smoothly, like a pre-programmed machine. Until Wednesday morning. I was setting breakfast on the table, oatmeal and boiled eggs, when the doorbell rang. Ha-Dai, who was tying his tie in his room, came out, frowned at his watch, then went to open the door. Standing outside was a woman. She wore a cream-colored suit, exquisitely tailored, her hair in a high bun, exuding an elegant aura from her very bones. In her hand, she held a file and a paper bag from the most famous pastry shop in the CBD. Adai, I came a bit early to drop off the merger documents. She smiled, a standard yet familiar smile. Ha-Dai leaned aside to let her in. Come in, Lamgi. Next time, just send it by express delivery. You don't need to bring it yourself. It's on my way. Your mother also sent you some gifts from home, asked me to bring them over. Lamgi stepped into the apartment, her eyes scanning the living room, then stopping at the dining table, where I stood frozen with a porridge ladle in my hand. The air hung heavy for 2 seconds. I looked down at my yellow duck pajamas, then at her designer outfit, feeling like a maid caught red-handed sneaking a bite. This is, Lamji raised an eyebrow, her tone still polite but her eyes showing a hint of scrutiny. Han Engai, a company employee, Ha Dai replied concisely, pulling out a chair and sitting at the dining table. Her apartment next door had a burst pipe and is being repaired. Ah, Lamji nodded, placing the bag of pastries on the table. Hello, Miss Han Engai. I'm Lamji, a Dai's partner. I bought some croissants, please join us. Thank you, Miss Lam, but I'm full. I put down the ladle and quickly grabbed my handbag. Boss, I'll go to the company first to prepare for the meeting. You two enjoy yourselves. Without waiting for Ha Dai's reply, I slipped on my shoes and rushed out the door as if chased by a ghost. In the elevator, I looked at my disheveled reflection in the mirror, suddenly feeling a pang in my chest. So he had close relationships like this, where people could casually visit his home early in the morning, while I was just a debtor hired to cook. At the company, the name Lamji appeared even more frequently than Ha Dai's. She was the legal representative for the investment fund pouring capital into our new project. Beautiful, talented, from a powerful family and a childhood friend of Ha Dai. During lunch break, I hid in the pantry, overhearing secretaries excitedly chatting outside. This morning, CEO Lam drove here with Boss Ha. I heard their families have been engaged for a long time. Exactly. A perfect match, talented man and beautiful woman from matching families. How could Boss Ha ever notice ordinary female employees? No wonder the boss is so strict. Turns out he already has his official wife, so he keeps himself reserved. Giggles echoed. I stirred my dark coffee, the bitter taste stinging my nose. Engagement. Childhood sweethearts. I recalled the onion-free soup and Ha Dai's asset protection care over the past few days. It turns out it was all just superfluous kindness from a man with too much time on his hands. Or worse, he saw me as a lost puppy or kitten that needed feeding. I gulped down the bitter coffee in one go. All right, Han Engai, wake up from this dream. Focus on earning money to pay off the 100,000 yuan debt. Don't fantasize about things that don't belong to you. That afternoon, I texted Ha Dai. Boss, I have a date with an old friend tonight. Can't come home to cook. You're on your own. Just deduct the breach of contract penalty from my salary. After sending it, I turned off my phone and buried myself in work until 9:00 p.m. My stomach rumbling, I went downstairs to the convenience store, bought a cup of instant noodles, and ate alone on a park bench opposite the apartment complex. The night wind howled, but I deliberately lingered, not wanting to return to apartment 1601 too soon. I was afraid to face him, afraid to see Lamji there again. At 10:30 p.m., I finally dragged myself back to the door. The lights in apartment 1601's living room were still on. I carefully opened the door, intending to sneak into my bedroom quickly. Where have you been? A cold voice from the sofa startled me. Ha Dai sat there, a laptop on his lap, but the screen was dark. He wore a black t-shirt, holding a can of beer, his sharp eyes fixed on me. I went to meet a friend. I clutched my handbag strap, lying without blinking. Which friend? A college friend you haven't seen in a long time, so you talked for a bit too long. Ha Dai placed the beer can on the table with a ***. Han Engai, if you're going to lie, at least make it plausible. I can check the security cameras in this area on my phone. I was speechless. This pervert even checks surveillance cameras? I looked up, the frustration accumulated all day erupting. What I do, where I go, who I meet, is my private business. Ha Dai stood up, walking step by step towards me. His shadow stretched long across the floor, enveloping me. Why are you avoiding me? I'm not avoiding you. I took a step back, my back hitting the shoe cabinet. I just don't want to bother you. Bother, he frowned. Well, Miss Lam came this morning. You two are childhood sweethearts, rumored to be getting married soon. It's awkward for me to be a third wheel here. Tomorrow, when the pipes are fixed, I'll move back home immediately. I spoke in one breath, trying to keep my voice as calm as possible, but my words trembled. Ha Dai froze, staring at me as if I were a strange creature, then suddenly burst out laughing, a laugh filled with both anger and helplessness. Who told you I'm getting married? The whole company is buzzing about it. saying you're a perfect match, talented man and beautiful woman from matching families. They're gossiping I'm about to die, do you believe that? Ha-Dai leaned one hand against the shoe cabinet, right next to my ear, trapping me in a narrow corner. The faint smell of beer wafted into my face. Listen carefully, Hanengai. Lam Ji is a partner, the daughter of my mother's best friend. She got married last year. Her husband is German, currently working in Shanghai. This morning, she happened to be passing by and brought wedding cake, inviting me to their one-year anniversary party. My eyes widened. She's already married. What did you think? Ha-Dai lowered his head. The distance between our noses was only a few centimeters. Am I the kind of person who juggles two women, keeping an employee in my house when I already have a fiancé? Do you think my character is that bad? My face flushed. It turned out I had been creating my own drama, needlessly jealous. Well, why didn't you say so sooner? I mumbled, turning my face away to avoid his scorching gaze. Suddenly remembering something, I quickly added, besides, whether you have a fiancé or not has nothing to do with me. I'm just an employee, it's not relevant. Ha-Dai repeated those 3 words, his voice deep and dangerously low. He suddenly gripped my chin, turned my face back, forcing me to look directly at him. I cook for you, apply medicine for you, pick you up in the middle of the night, clean up your messes. Do you think I have nothing better to do than to be a charity case? My heart pounded as if it would leap out of my chest. I thought you were protecting company assets. Company assets include tons of computers, desks, and chairs in the office. Why don't I bring those home and apply medicine to them? He released my hand, but his eyes remained locked on mine. Are your eyes just for decoration, or can't you see that I'm pursuing you? My mind exploded with a asterisk bang asterisk. Pursuing? Ha-Dai, the dark, blood-sucking capitalist boss my nemesis just said he was pursuing me. I gaped, unable to utter a word. Ha-Dai seemed very satisfied with my foolish expression. He stood up straight, brushing off his shirt as if nothing had happened. All right, that's the announcement. Now go shower and sleep. Tomorrow, we have a business trip to Hangzhou. 5 a.m. departure. Hangzhou? I asked blankly. The new project requires on-site survey. You're coming with me? He turned and walked towards his bedroom. After a few steps, he stopped. Oh, I forgot. From now on, no instant noodles. I'm fattening you up, not for you to ruin your stomach with that garbage. The door to his room closed. I slid down to the floor, clutching my left chest, which was beating wildly. This guy's confession is as bossy as an order, really. At 5:00 a.m., it was still pitch black. I pulled my suitcase down to the apartment lobby. Ha-Dai was already waiting in the familiar Audi. He wore comfortable sportswear instead of a business suit, holding 2 hot cups of coffee. Seeing me, he said nothing, just opened the car door and handed me a cup. Drink this to wake up. The highway to Hangzhou is quite empty this morning. You can get some more sleep. I took the coffee cup, its warmth spreading through my fingers, easing the morning chill. After his shocking declaration of pursuit last night, the atmosphere between us became awkward. I didn't dare look him directly in the eye, mumbled, "Thank you," and dove into the passenger seat, pulling my hood over my head to pretend to sleep. Ha-Dai didn't expose me either. He drove smoothly, creating almost no noise for 3 hours, only occasionally glancing at the air conditioning to adjust the temperature. Arriving in Hangzhou at 9:00 a.m., we immediately plunged into work. This project involved surveying locations to open new branches for the supply chain. The schedule was packed, requiring constant travel between 3 industrial zones and 2 logistics centers. I followed Ha-Dai, recording data, taking photos of the sites, and negotiating with local management. Ha-Dai's work intensity was truly terrifying. He didn't take a lunch break, eating sandwiches while reviewing planning maps, constantly rattling off analytical figures. I, who usually had good health, began to feel exhausted. By 5:00 p.m., my head felt heavy, my throat was dry and sore, and every breath I exhaled was hot. I knew I had a fever, probably from the rain during the pipe burst incident combined with several late nights. "Boss, is there any more schedule for tonight?" I tried to keep my voice normal. Ha-Dai folded the map. At 7:00 p.m., there's a social gathering with the district party secretary and several local business leaders. Go back to the hotel and change. I'll pick you up at 6:30. I wanted to ask for leave, but thinking about the importance of this party for obtaining business licenses and seeing Ha-Dai's serious face, I swallowed my refusal. Yes. Back in my hotel room, I quickly took 2 cold medicine pills, took a quick shower, and applied heavy makeup to hide my pale complexion. I chose a discreet black office dress, adding a blazer because I felt alternating hot and cold. The party was held at a lakeside restaurant, and wine flowed freely. Although Ha-Dai stood up and helped me block a lot of drinks, as an accompanying assistant, I still had to drink a few social glasses with the wives of the leaders. By the 3rd glass, my stomach cramped, my vision blurred, and the chandelier on the ceiling seemed to spin like a top. My legs felt like jelly, and I swayed, about to fall. A strong arm quickly caught my waist. Han Engai, Ha-Dai's voice resonated in my ear, no longer his usual calm, but with a hint of urgency. I looked up at him, seeing his face blurred. "Boss, I'm so hot." Ha-Dai immediately reached out and touched my forehead. His cold hand made me unconsciously rub against it. "So hot like a burning coal, and you still dare to drink?" He merely cursed under his breath, then turned to the table and said, "Excuse me, leaders, my assistant suddenly feels unwell. I must take her back to rest. I will cover all expenses for tonight's party. I will personally come to apologize next time." "Oh, CEO Ha, we're having fun." A pot-bellied man tried to stop him, but Ha-Dai didn't care. He bent down, one arm slipping under my legs, the other supporting my back, lifting me into his arms in front of everyone. I buried my head in his chest, inhaling the familiar warm woody scent that overpowered the strong smell of wine and food. The absolute sense of security made me relax. My consciousness gradually faded into darkness. When I woke up, it was pitch dark around me, only the faint yellow glow of a night light in the corner of the room. My head throbbed and my throat was parched. I stirred, intending to sit up, only to find my hand tightly held by someone. Ha-Dai sat in the armchair next to the bed, his head resting against the headboard, dozing off, but his hand still held mine without letting go. A cool, fever-reducing patch was on my forehead. I looked at him, a complex emotion welling up inside me. This man had abandoned an important party, abandoned a chance for promotion, to come here and watch over a sick employee. I subtly moved my finger. Ha-Dai immediately woke up. He opened his eyes, his usually sharp gaze now bloodshot with fatigue. "Awake? Still feel uncomfortable anywhere?" He reached out and touched my forehead again, then sighed in relief. "The fever's down. You scared me to death. Your fever reached 40 degrees. He stood up, poured a glass of warm water, and helped me sit up to drink. "I'm sorry, boss, I messed up your work," I said hoarsely. "What work is more important than a life?" Ha-Dai put down the glass of water, his tone reproachful but his actions very gentle as he brushed away the sweat-soaked strands of hair from my forehead. "Next time, if you feel unwell, you must say so. Don't try to be strong." I silently looked at him. In the quiet hotel room, the boundary between superior and subordinate seemed to blur. "Ha-Dai," I suddenly called his name. Did I say anything random earlier? I vaguely remembered dreaming about college. Ha-Dai paused for a moment, his eyes darkening, looking deep into mine. "You called out a name." My heart skipped a beat. "Whose?" "Hua Ji-min." I was stunned. Hua Ji-min, an upperclassman in college whom I had a secret crush on, but that was so long ago. Why would I suddenly mention him? Ha-Dai looked at my reaction, chuckled faintly. "You said, 'Hua Ji-min, why didn't you wait for me? I climbed the wall to meet you, but you left.'" I blushed. That was true. In my second year of college, I climbed the wall to sneak out, intending to watch Hua Ji-min perform at a talent show, but I was caught by the security guard and had to run away, eventually missing the performance. "That's an old story," I quickly explained. "I was childish back then." "I know," Ha-Dai cut me off. "Because that night, the person who reported a student climbing the wall to the security guard was me." My eyes widened. "What, you reported it to the security?" Ha-Dai calmly nodded, pulling his chair closer to me. "Hua Ji-min didn't go to the talent show that night. He went to a bar with his ex-girlfriend. If I hadn't reported it and stopped you, you would have gone there and seen that scene, and you would have cried all night." My mind buzzed. "How did you know? Did you go to the same school as me?" "Han Engai, I was 2 years ahead of you, in the business administration department." Ha-Dai looked at me with a helpless expression. "I was the student union president that year. The disciplinary report you got for wall climbing was personally signed and kept by me. But why don't I remember you? Because at that time, your eyes only saw Hua Jiamin. Ha Dai's voice deepened, carrying a hint of unconcealed jealousy. Every day you would chase after him to the library, buy him drinks, and I sat at the table directly opposite you, but you never even glanced at me. I tried to rummage through my memories. It seemed there indeed was an upperclassman who often sat in the library, cold-faced, always glaring at me whenever I made noise. It turned out to be Ha Dai. You moved to Van Can Ian because of me? Ha Dai admitted frankly. I knew you broke up with your ex-boyfriend, knew you were having difficulties at work, knew you had to move suddenly. I bought apartment 1601 2 years ago, but I kept it empty. When I heard you were moving to 1602, I moved in. He took my hand and squeezed it tightly. Han Engai, I don't believe in random fate. All our encounters, collisions, even you throwing up on me, were all part of my plan. Except for you being so foolish, you didn't recognize who I was. I tried to pull my hand back, but he didn't let go. You schemed against me. I was investing, Ha Dai corrected me, his gaze firm. I invested my time, effort, and even my feelings in you, and I never accept losses. You must let me recover my investment. I looked at the man in front of me. He didn't use flowery, empty words. He used a businessman's mindset to talk about love. But strangely, I didn't find it repulsive. On the contrary, my heart was pounding wildly because of this calculated, deeply affectionate plan. Boss, are you taking advantage of me being sick to interrogate me? I protested weakly, my voice barely a whisper. Exactly. Ha Dai stood up and tucked the blanket around me again. Now go to sleep. When you're well tomorrow, we'll discuss how to recover my investment. I don't mind waiting a few more years, but it's best if you don't make me wait too long. He turned off the bedside lamp, leaving only a small light in the hallway, then returned to the armchair to watch over me. I lay in the warm blankets, looking at his broad back in the darkness. The loneliness I had felt, living in the big city for so many years, suddenly vanished. It turned out there had always been someone silently behind me, cleaning up my troubles and waiting for me to turn and look. I closed my eyes, the corners of my lips unconsciously curving upwards. Ha Dai, you're amazing. This debt, I'm afraid I'll have to spend my whole life paying. Returning from Hangzhou, the company's Dai Thang Southern Branch expansion project was a huge success. This quarter's business figures showed a 200% growth, far exceeding all expectations of the board of directors. The plan that Ha Dai had once rejected now became a model for all other branches to emulate. Han Engai, from an employee rumored to be riding on the boss's coattails, became the brightest star in the marketing department. A generous bonus was transferred directly to my account. Looking at the string of zeros, I breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, I had enough money to pay off the 100,000 yuan debt to Ha Dai. But the problem wasn't the money, it was everyone's attitude. No matter how much I tried, the label of CEO Ha's rumored girlfriend clung to me. In the elevator, in the cafeteria, whenever Ha Dai and I appeared together, the atmosphere immediately became ambiguous. I didn't want my career to be overshadowed by my romantic life. I wanted to stand beside him as equals, not hide behind his back. On Friday afternoon, I held a white envelope and knocked on Ha Dai's office door. Come in. Ha Dai was signing documents. Seeing me enter with a serious expression, he stopped writing and leaned back in his chair. What's wrong? You look as serious as if you're about to collect a debt. I placed the envelope on the table, pushing it towards him. Boss, this is a transfer request. The faint smile on Ha Dai's lips vanished. He didn't pick up the envelope, only glanced at the words, transfer request, then looked up at me, his eyes chilling slightly. Reason. I want to request a transfer to the new branch in Hangzhou. They are short a marketing director. I believe I have the capability. I took a deep breath and spoke directly. Furthermore, I think we need some time apart. Office romance negatively impacts your reputation and my development. Ha Dai was silent. The air in the room was so thick that I could hear the ticking of the clock. He stood up, walked around the desk, and stood in front of me. Han Engai, do you think I invested in you, trained you, took you to meet high-level partners, just for you to run away to Hangzhou and avoid me? I'm not running away. I looked up at him. I just want to prove my ability. Here, no matter how well I do, people will only think it's because you promoted me. So what? Ha-Dai countered. What's wrong with me promoting my woman? What they say is their business. The important thing is whether you truly have the ability. Your running away only proves you're weak and afraid of public opinion. He picked up the envelope, tore it in half, and threw it into the trash. Request denied. Go back to work. Ha-Dai, I shouted angrily. Don't be so dictatorial. I'm an employee. I have the right to choose my workplace. You're an employee, but you're also my debtor. Ha-Dai bent down, placing both hands on the back of my chair, trapping me within his arms. The 100,000 yuan isn't fully paid, and the cooking contract still has 5 months left. Where do you plan to run? I'll pay it now. I pulled out my phone. My bonus has arrived. I'll transfer it to you immediately. Once it's paid, I'll leave. Ha-Dai stared at me, his eyes darkening, hinting at a storm about to erupt, but then he suddenly released me, stepped back, his face becoming strangely calm. All right, you want to pay off the debt, right? Come home tonight and we'll settle it. Now get out. His sudden change of attitude startled me, but I didn't want to argue at the company, so I turned and left. At 7:00 p.m., I rang the doorbell of apartment 1601. Ha-Dai opened the door. He wasn't wearing his usual loungewear but a black shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal an expensive watch looking very formal. Come in. On the dining table, there was no usual dinner but instead, a thick file and an uncorked bottle of red wine. I sat opposite him, took out my phone. What's your account number? I'll transfer 100,000 plus interest, however you calculate it. Ha-Dai didn't answer. He pushed the file towards me. Read this first. I took the file. The outside read Real Estate Transfer Agreement. I opened it and my eyes widened as I read. These were the documents for apartment 1602 where I was living. The seller was a real estate company, the buyer was Ha-Dai. The purchase date was 2 years ago. You're my landlord? I stammered. Correct. Ha-Dai took a sip of red wine, calmly saying, I bought this entire floor 2 years ago as an investment, but the other day, as soon as I heard your old landlord evicted you, I immediately told the agent to release a rental listing for this apartment at a cheap price, specifically targeting you. Otherwise, do you think in a place like Beijing, where every inch of land is gold, you'd find such a high-end apartment for such a steal, and at just the right moment? Why? I already said I'm investing. Ha-Dai put down his wine glass, looking directly into my eyes. I was afraid you'd struggle, afraid you'd be cheated, afraid you'd live in an unsafe place. But I know you have high self-esteem, you definitely wouldn't take money, so I had to use this method. He turned the next page of the file. Today, you're insisting on moving to Hangzhou. I see this investment of mine is at risk of heavy losses. I'm a businessman, I never accept losing everything. He took out a pen and placed it on the last page. This is the transfer procedure. Apartment 1602 currently has a market value of about 8 million yuan. I'm using it as a betrothal gift. Do you think it's enough? My mind buzzed. Betrothal gift, 8 million yuan. Ha-Dai, are you crazy? Why are you suddenly giving me a house? It's not sudden. Ha-Dai stood up, walked around the table to my side. He knelt on one knee, a posture like proposing, but in his hand wasn't a diamond ring but a fountain pen. Han Engai, I've been pursuing you since you were 20 and now you're 26. 6 years I patiently waited for you to mature, waited for you to forget your ex, waited for you to see me. I don't want to wait anymore. He took my trembling hand, placing the pen in it. You want fairness, you don't want people gossiping about you. All right, this house is in your name, you will be my creditor. From now on, I'll have to live by your whims. At work, I'm your boss, but at home, you're my landlord. Is that fair enough? I looked at the usually arrogant and cold man, now kneeling at my feet, offering his entire assets for a nod. My nose stung. But I still owe you 100,000. Deduct it from the house price, Ha-Dai said decisively. And from now on, my salary will also be transferred directly to your account. You manage the finances, I manage earning money. As for going to Hangzhou, forget it immediately. I don't accept long-distance relationships. I burst into tears of laughter. This guy, even when proposing, has to be so meticulous, dividing responsibilities so clearly. Aren't you afraid I'll trick you into giving me the house and then run away? Do you dare? Ha-Dai raised an eyebrow, his eyes full of challenge. The transfer contract has an additional clause. Party B, which is you, must be responsible for cooking and living with Party A, which is me, for life. If breached, the penalty is 10 times the asset value. I held the pen, looking into his deep eyes that held my reflection. 6 years, so he had been behind me for that long. I bent down and signed my name in the transferee box. As soon as I put down the pen, Ha-Dai stood up, pulled me into his arms, and kissed me passionately. The kiss carried the possessiveness and pent-up emotions of years, hot and fierce. Sealed, no returns, no exchanges, he whispered into my ear, his voice husky. I wrapped my arms around his neck, burying my head in his shoulder. Boss, you've made a huge loss on this investment. I eat a lot, sleep a lot, and I'm argumentative. It's all right. Ha-Dai tightened his embrace. The interest calculated over your entire lifetime is enough. The next morning, a phone call from the headquarters delivered shocking news. There was a complaint alleging Ha-Dai abused his power for personal gain and had an improper relationship with a subordinate. The inspection team was on its way to the branch to investigate. Ha-Dai looked at his phone, his face hardening. It seems someone doesn't want us to have peace. I tightly gripped his hand. This time, I'll face it with you. Monday morning, the atmosphere at the East China branch office was as tense as a violin string. 3 members of the inspection team from the headquarters sat in the meeting room, their faces cold, facing Ha-Dai and me. Department head Lu sat in the corner, a triumphant smile unconcealed at the corner of her mouth. The complaint must have been her doing. CEO Ha, Miss Han Engai. The head of the inspection team pushed up his glasses, his voice even. We have received a report that you two had a romantic relationship during work, leading to CEO Ha preferentially assigning the critical Kai Hon project to Miss Han Engai, bypassing internal review procedures. Do either of you have an explanation? I clenched my hands under the table. It was true we had a relationship, but the Kai Hon project was obtained by me climbing walls, drinking, and risking my life. I was about to explain when Ha-Dai raised a hand to stop me. He calmly opened the file in front of him, pulled out the latest financial report, and slapped it onto the table. Before we talk about romance, gentlemen, please look at this. The head of the inspection team picked it up, his brows slightly furrowed. This is last quarter's revenue report. Since Han Engai took over the Kai Hon project, the branch's net profit has increased by 200%, and market share has expanded by 15%. These are figures that no one in this office has achieved in the past 5 years, not even those who claim to have long experience. Ha-Dai glanced at department head Lu. She immediately lowered her head, her smile vanishing. The company hired me to make money, not to be a monk. Ha-Dai leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. I assign projects to the most capable person. The results have proven my judgment was not wrong. As for procedures, I am the regional CEO. I have the right to make personnel decisions. But company policy prohibits direct superiors and subordinates from dating. The head of the inspection team tapped his hand on the table. This is a matter of professional ethics. Who said we're dating? Ha-Dai retorted, his tone so calm that even I was startled and turned to look at him. Is he going to deny it? We are not dating. Ha-Dai pulled his chair back, stood up, walked to my side, gripped my hand firmly, and raised it in front of everyone. We are in a debtor-creditor relationship. More specifically, she is the landlord, and I am the tenant. The entire meeting room was dumbfounded. Ha-Dai pulled out the property transfer agreement from last night from his pocket and placed it on the table. The apartment I am living in is owned by Han Engai. I owe her rent and living expenses for life. If you fire her, she will terminate the rental agreement, and I will be homeless. And if I'm not in a good mood, my work performance will decline. You can consider whether to keep an excellent employee or listen to baseless rumors spread by jealous people. What kind of absurd reasoning is this? Yet, looking at the 200% growth figures, the inspection team had to fall silent. In business, profit is the most weighty voice. The head of the inspection team cleared his throat and closed the file. All right, regarding competence, we acknowledge Miss Han Engai's contribution, but to avoid gossip, I suggest one of you should transfer departments. No need. I stood up, pulling out the resignation letter I had prepared in my bag. I resign. Ha-Dai spun around to look at me, his eyes wide with surprise. Han Engai, you. Boss, calm down. I patted his hand reassuringly, then turned to the inspection team. I'm resigning from here, but that doesn't mean I'm leaving the industry. With my current resume, I'm perfectly capable of applying for a marketing director position at a competing company. Or, I smiled, I will open my own company, and my first client will be Kai Hone. CEO Tun Lap only trusts me. His contract includes a clause stating that if the person in charge is not Han Engai, the contract is invalid. This was the final killing blow. Tun Lap had indeed added this clause after learning I was being ostracized by colleagues. The inspection team's faces changed. Losing me meant losing Kai Hone, losing 40% of the market share. The outcome of the meeting was not unexpected. I was kept and promoted to Associate Marketing Director. Department Head Liu was transferred to the Logistics Department for causing internal disunity. 3 months later, all the storms had passed. Ha Dai and I officially moved in together at apartment 1602. Apartment 1601 next door was renovated into an office and storage room. On Sunday morning, I was sleeping in when the phone rang, waking me up. It was an urgent online meeting with an overseas partner due to time zone differences. My eyes half closed, I grabbed my laptop, logged into the Zoom meeting room, turned off the camera and mic, intending to just listen passively. In the living room, Ha Dai was also in an online meeting with the group's board of directors. He sat formally in front of his computer, white shirt, Bluetooth headset, exuding a commanding aura. Feeling thirsty, I groggily got up and walked to the living room. Seeing Ha Dai in a meeting, I tiptoed past him to the kitchen. But halfway there, I suddenly remembered that last night he had washed clothes and forgotten to hang my dress. "Honey," I called out, forgetting he was in a meeting. "Where did you throw my red nightgown? I saw you taking it to the bathroom last night." The space fell silent. Ha Dai stiffened. He slowly turned his head to look at me, pointing at the computer screen with the camera and mic on. On the screen, 12 board members, including the group chairman at headquarters, were staring wide-eyed at me. I was wearing dinosaur pajamas, my hair a mess, standing awkwardly, asking their boss about my red nightgown. "Ahem," the chairman cleared his throat. "CEO Ha, it seems your rental agreement includes laundry service, doesn't it?" My face turned beet red like a boiled shrimp. I shrieked and ran into the bedroom, burying myself under the covers. Ha Dai's low chuckle echoed from outside. "Excuse me, everyone, my landlord is a bit difficult. I'll turn off the camera for 5 minutes to go find her dress, otherwise, I won't get lunch today." After that embarrassing incident, the entire group knew that the cold, stony CEO Ha was actually a devoted husband, who not only had to cook and do laundry at home, but was also managed financially by his wife. At the end of the year, Beijing welcomed its first snowfall. We stood in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau, holding 2 bright red marriage certificates. "So, it's done." I looked at the picture of us smiling brightly on the marriage certificate, still feeling somewhat unreal. "Not yet." Ha Dai tucked the certificate into his shirt pocket, closest to his heart. "There's one more procedure." "What procedure?" "Transferring your household registration." He took my hand and walked on the pristine white snow. "From today, you are no longer the neighbor from upstairs or downstairs, nor a subordinate employee. You are the biggest shareholder of my life." I squeezed his hand tightly. The warmth from his large hand spread, dispelling the coldness of winter. "Boss," I said, your investment in this venture is truly high interest. You put in a house and got a wife, and you get a free senior marketing executive for life." Ha Dai stopped, bent down, and lightly kissed my forehead, the corner of his eye curving in a satisfied smile. "Of course, a businessman never makes a losing deal, but for this one, I'm willing to lose my whole life so you can profit entirely." I smiled, leaning into his embrace.